Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul. My co-host Justin Baker joining me via Skype. And Justin, it's a beautiful day outside, 80 degrees, and I don't know where you're sitting in your house, but I'm in a basement. An unfinished basement is where I'm sitting right now.
Well, I'm sitting in the corner of my rental property, and there are no windows in this corner, so it's very bleak that I'm staring at a wall.
All right, well, that's funny because I'm in the basement and I have windows. Not great windows. You know, they're like the ones where you actually can't see anything out of them. It looks like you're like 23 drinks in when you look out the window. Very blurry and whatnot. But there is some light coming in. Only one of them. The other three around me are all underneath a deck, so no light there. But okay, you're here to hear about hockey, and you know we've been watching a lot. I don't know how much our listeners have been watching, but it's hard to stay away. And for me, of course, I've been watching every Tampa Toronto game. That has been my go-to when that's been on. Last night I saw it was like the first time since 1991 that there were 4 Game 5s on at the same time.
Dude,
not on the same day.
That were tied 2-2.
On the same day. Yes, that were tied 2-2. Yeah.
So good. I love it. I'm a little upset that the Penguins couldn't be tied with the Rangers 2-2 and make it another trifecta of 3 more of them tonight, but it is what it is.
Well, see, I'm not, because I picked the Penguins to win. I picked them in 7, though. I picked them in 7. Well, you know, before we get to the playoffs at hand, let's just get to a couple of, I'll say, housekeeping items. First is Barry Trotz, fired from the New York Islanders. I mean, get us to the 3rd round a couple years and miss the playoffs, and now you're done. So Barry Trotz out as the head coach of the Islanders. What do you think of this?
Dude, I'm not really that shocked, to be quite honest. I mean, we're talking about the same Lou Lamoriello that fired Claude Julien from the Montreal Canadiens when they were number 1 in their division, right? So this is a guy that won't, does not care about timing or how good or how bad you've been. He'll let you go, right? But I mean, to look at the Islanders as a whole, right? This season, I don't want to say it's kind of a wash, but when you basically spend, the first half of your season on the road and you're trying to, stay competitive with the rest of the NHL, it's a difficult task. And, I got to commend Barry Trotz, what he did with a team that, in my opinion, didn't have a lot of talented players. I mean, they were, in my opinion, a bunch outside of maybe Matthew Barzal, a bunch of second-line guys at best that were playing on this team. And
he coached him up He coached him up good there,
Yes, say it. And he took a bunch of no-name defensemen, right, and turned them into just top 2 pairing guys, all up and down that. And Varlamov, who was just, in my opinion, he was a good goaltender, but he wasn't great, and goes into New York and gets his deal. Barry Trotz comes in and basically says, "Okay, cool. Now you're going to be an elite goaltender, a top 10." And I mean, gosh, the system he ran in there it squeezed every ounce out of every one of those players. All right, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say because of course there's lots. I mean, Barry Trotz, we know what he brings to the table. I want to get your thoughts on where you think he's going to go, because he is. I won't say at his peak. Remember, this guy, he can't do anything right. He wins the cup, gets fired. Well, doesn't get re-signed. And then he takes his team to 2 Final Fours and then just misses the play. Misses the playoffs in a really weird year. Like, we can all brush this year off for the Islanders. I think pretty reasonably, especially since Lou Lamoriello did nothing at the deadline. To me, that was a vote of confidence. That was a, hey, this is a fluke. So we'll figure it out in the off season. Well, obviously this is them figuring it out in the off season. But this guy is still maybe top 5 coach in the NHL.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Where is he going to go? Because I mean, I would think that any team without a head coach or any team that was considering letting their head coach go has now shot them a quick text to let them know that if Barry Trotz is willing to come in, they're going to get fired.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's probably no shortage of teams with or without head coaches solidified right now that are calling, right? I mean, you could obviously the candidates like, Chicago or Detroit, I'm sure have probably made their inquiries already. A team like Winnipeg, for example, they need a head coach.
His hometown, Trotz, too.
Yeah, from Manitoba, right? That would be a good fit, a bunch of veteran guys that he could probably squeeze a little bit more out of, because Winnipeg's been a team to me that I always, year in and year out, I just look at them and I'm like, man, I expected more out of this team. I wanted more out of Winnipeg.
Even when they were good and in the playoffs, you go, oh man, they lost in the second round. I expected them to go to the final. Like they were that good at one point, a couple years ago.
So here's the thing though that I propose to you, because this is what I think is going to be more intriguing is, this first round of the playoffs, there's going to be a handful of teams that really were good teams that probably could have gone to the conference finals, could have made it deep in the playoffs had it not been for their matchup in the first round, that maybe could look at Barry Trotz and say, you know what, we want to make a change. For example, Florida Panthers, right? If they get eliminated by the Washington Capitals here, you think they're going to look at Barry Trotz and be like, we could bring this guy in, or we could go with, Andrew Burnett, who maybe wasn't ready to be a head coach and just took over at, the wrong time. And so we're going to bring this guy in now and give Trotz a chance to get a little bit more out of this group, because, man, wouldn't that be something? But I mean, honestly, I think right now, if you're a betting man, I think the odds-on favorite right now might be Winnipeg, just because that's his hometown, and he's also looking for management opportunities. And the way Kevin Cheveldayoff's been the last few years, I think maybe there might be an opportunity for him to get more of a voice in that in that management structure.
That's an interesting. I didn't hear that. Is that something that you heard, that he was looking for like management opportunities?
Yeah, I think that was Elliot Friedman texted something about that.
Oh, okay.
Like tweeted when he was fired. So,
gotcha. Well, yeah, that would be interesting. I also thought, I texted this to my brother. I said, if the Leafs happen to lose to Tampa, I think it's almost assured that you're going to fire Sheldon Keefe. If you could get Barry Trotz in Toronto, you would fire him. If you thought you had a shot, he's gone. And now after last night's comeback victory, you got to feel a little better. But thus far, Sheldon Keefe, Mike Babcock, doesn't matter who it was. They have this group. That Leafs group is like 1-8 when they lead a series since 2017. That and the other thing they're working against, Tampa Bay has only won 17 games in a row in the playoffs after losing a game. I mean, that stat
so you know what that
is
means.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Oh, I mean, suppose they've got a shot because, hey, Tampa they could win that 18th game and the Leafs still got a game 7 in there. But, oh man, just for my nerves, could they just win a damn game when they're up in the series? Like, can we just not go to game 7 again? Because, anyways, I can't.
That's going to be a mental issue for Toronto when they get in there, right? The media, everybody's going to be just after them. So, yeah.
Well, that's exactly. I will say yes, but that's what happened after game 2 when it was like, you're up in a series. Yeah, you guys stunk game 2, and then game 4, you guys were terrible. You had a chance to take a stranglehold on the series, and you didn't. And it's kind of this funny, this team is different than last year's team, is different than the team before in some respects, and. It's funny to we compare the previous years, but if you just separated everything out and you go, the Leafs had a great game, then Tampa had a great game, then the Leafs had a great game, then Tampa had a great game, and then they both played pretty great, and the Leafs came out on top. Like, that's pretty much how the series has gone. And if you were watching this series and it were any other team but the Leafs, you would go, I think the Leafs have a pretty good shot at winning that game 6. In Tampa, the way that they played there at the end, if they can play like that and just like come out strong, they could win. If it were any other team, if it were Boston, if it were what, Pittsburgh, any team, they would probably go, yeah, they seem to, they're winning all the different kinds of ways and blah, 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 blah. I just think if it were any team but the Leafs, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but here we are because they're the Leafs. Oh, Barry Trotz, you think he'll go to Winnipeg?
That's the odds-on favorite. Now that's where I don't want him to go, but
you want him. No, I don't want him to go to Florida because honestly.
Oh no, I want him to come to Detroit. Are you kidding me?
Oh, okay. Well, then
I think if you're going to take the next step as a franchise, right? You bring in a better. I mean, Steve Yzerman's come out and said he wants a veteran voice behind that bench. He doesn't want a rookie coach like he did with John Cooper.
Would he hire Joel Quenneville?
Oh no, God no.
You don't think so?
Oh no, you're not going down that road. That media circus that's going to follow with him. So.
Apparently, he's. There are many teams asking about him to come back.
I mean, hey, if he's
because he's been taking classes,
Yeah, I mean, eventually, but
taking some classes.
I don't know if Joe
what do they
Quenneville's the
teach
guy
in
for
that
Detroit.
class? Hey, when someone comes to you and says, "That guy over there, he touched my dick," and what are the questions on the test? True or false?
How big is it?
Ignore their plea. That's a pretty easy false, I think. Anyways, so okay, yeah, I that would be fun. Barry Trotz to Detroit. I think that he would. Everyone would be like, "Oh, he could turn them into a playoff team overnight." I don't know about that, but it would sort of remind me of when Mike Babcock went to Toronto. That like, all right, Toronto was really bad. Remember, like his first season, Toronto finished last in the league. The Leafs were really bad, and he took it as a like, well, if I can go in there and turn this franchise around, I'll be that would be the ultimate, right? And I'd say that Detroit is a pretty similar kind of vibe. Like Barry Trotz has coached from the bottom up, the Predators, and certainly got them in a position of where they were, had a chance to do good things in the league, made them a perennial playoff team, what have you. I think it would be an awesome challenge for Barry Trotz to go into Detroit. They wouldn't be all of a sudden the best team in the league, or anywhere close to it, but it would be fun to see him actually be with the team from not the ground up, but like kind of those beginning stages of getting good and see what he can do with them. I would love to see it.
Yeah, it'd be great. Me too.
Okay. What else do we? What other housekeeping things do we have to hit? Oh, we need the draft lottery was last night, and the Montreal Canadiens take the number 1 pick. I think it's their first number 1 pick in like a million years. I don't know that anyone's alive still from back when Montreal had a first overall pick. Well, so their first overall pick since like 1940 or something like that. I think that's what I read. I might be wrong. You can tweet at us if I'm wrong, but I saw something about 1940 in the Montreal Canadiens. So
it was 1980, by the way.
Oh, 1980.
They selected forward Doug Wickenheiser.
It was 42 years ago. That's what it was. 42 years ago. Yeah. Doug Wickenheiser. He turned out not so great. Not for a first overall pick. Not when you could have gotten like Ray Bourque, I think, in that draft or something, right?
Right, exactly.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the downside is that, Shane Wright, well, he's going to be a good player. He's definitely no like Connor Bedard coming the following year, he's not going to be Sidney Crosby. He's not going to be a McDavid or Eichel or Matthews or anything. I think I've seen different predictions, different comparables, and the one that I thought was most appropriate was Mika Zibanejad was kind of a comparable, like a top center goal scorer. He's big, but he's not going to be top 10 player in the league kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen other comparables like Patrice Bergeron. He has a very good two-way game from what I understand and everything I've read. Obviously I haven't seen much tape on this kid and haven't seen him play live or anything like that, so I can't speak to great lengths. But again, what I've read, yeah, a Mika Zibanejad, a Patrice Bergeron. I mean, you would love it if he turned out to be a Bergeron type player, or even a Zibanejad. Really, I mean, Gosh, I would take either one of those. That would be a success for a number one pick. But you're right. He's not going to be their Connor McDavid's or an Austin Matthews type guy, right? He's not going to be that elite number one center going to take over, drive a team. Just
probably Nico Hischier is a good number one overall comparable. Either him or like a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Sure.
Good player. Probably will have some close to point per game seasons, but he's never going to be like you're never going to want him to be the only guy. I guess is the way that I foresee that. Not that the league really goes that way, anyways. There's very few high end players that just play by themselves with like crappy line mates. It just doesn't work. You got to have at least one other guy. The New Jersey Devils move up. Speaking of Nico Hischier, and they'll have the opportunity to you can take Slavkovsky, who is the number one for international skaters, and he did really well in the Olympics. I think he was most valuable player of the tournament in the Olympics. So you've got a good European player, a good winger for the New Jersey Devils to take, kind of add to that bevy of centers. And of course, once again, the Arizona Coyotes, nothing good happens to them in the lottery. But we'll talk draft later. But it's, I guess, I'm happy for Montreal because after all the crap that happened this year with Carey Price and Shea Weber and all this, that they'll get to have a good player up there, and maybe they're finally have a top center, a real true top center on Montreal. It's been a minute. Like, who's the last true number one center that they had on their team? Like, we're not Philip Deneau, not a number one center.
Saku Koivu, maybe?
Maybe. I mean, I guess you could go. Was Plekanec a center? Thomas
yes, he was.
I mean, that's about as close to a number one as they've had, right? Like, not that he was anything real special. And he fits the mold,
right? That he's that two-way center that can chip in some offense.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what you might be getting. And, I mean, hey, look, I think Shane Wright and Nick Suzuki would be a very good 1-2 punch to have. And you don't have to, categorize one guy as your top line guy and the other as the second line. You could roll either one out at almost any time. So I think that's a great number 1-2 punch to have if you're Montreal.
There we go. Last little note. This does have to do with the playoffs, but Darnell Nurse suspended for Game 6. So that's a big blow. He headbutted Filip Deneau in Game 5. I don't know if you saw that.
Stupid.
But he'll be suspended, and the Oilers must win in order to force a Game 7. Pretty exciting game. That Game 5 last night. The Oilers coming back, and they just couldn't close it out there in OT. But LA has, and it's interesting because you got LA and you have Dallas, the two teams that everyone went, nah, not going to happen. Sorry, guys. They both have basically done the same thing, just made it boring as shit, and they've been winning. Those two series have been very boring at times. Especially that Calgary-Dallas series has been real draggy at times to watch. But that's the way those teams win in the playoffs. Like, they don't have any other choice. But yeah, that Darnell Nurse won't be there for Game 6. So that's a very big blow for the Oilers.
Yeah, speaking of, blows to the defense, right? I mean, you've got LA who brings in a defenseman off, just the scratch list, and Troy Stetcher, and he puts up 4 points in 2 games. Just killing it for LA, and what a pickup from Detroit that was. From Detroit,
yeah, I was going to say it's on Detroit.
And then the opposite side, right? You lose your top guy on defense. If you're Edmonton, listen, Mike Smith has done a great job at that, keeping them in these games in front of that net. He's been, he's got great numbers to show for it. He's had a little bit of a gaffe, and I think it was Game 2 or whatever it was where he gave the puck away just stupidly.
Game 1.
Yeah, that's what it was. But other than that, he's been rock solid for this team and giving them a chance every night. It's just, Edmonton is just getting stifled by LA. They like to play that quick north-south game, and Edmonton and LA is just really clogging things up for them, not giving them, a lot of opportunities. And, Connor McDavid, only 2 goals. I mean, granted, yes, he does have the points to go with it, but as far as assists are concerned, but I mean, 2 goals, that's not enough for me. Their backs are against the wall now, and they're going to have to do it without their top defenseman. So Mike Smith's going to have to stand on his head a little bit more. And I mean, luckily for them, they're not facing a potent, a big offensive powerhouse or juggernaut, really. So, they might be able to survive this one, but we'll see. And then I'd be interested to see what happens if they lose this series. The ramifications in the offseason are going to be fun for me to watch.
Another possible location for Barry Trotz, apparently.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's talk Nashville, Colorado, because it is the one series that is done. Colorado eliminates the Predators in 4 games. Only one of those games, I think, was a 1-goal game. It was a very lopsided series. What did you take from this series?
I mean, my first impression was, boy, they are missing UC Saros. They just they look pedestrian without him. I mean, it was, yes, I liked what I saw out of Matt Duchene, Granlund, Forsberg, these guys. I mean, Forsberg did take a while to get going and score some goals, but for the most part, I mean, look, they had their top guys playing all right. They weren't playing otherworldly like they would have needed them to get past this.
Well, what the heck are you going to do? Team. What are you going to do when you've got a freaking defenseman with 3 goals and 10 points in 4 games? I mean, Cale Makar only on pace for to like break the record in points in the playoffs.
Dude, I mean, listen, he's going to face some tougher goaltenders as these playoffs go along.
Yes,
so I don't think he's going to have it as easy. But I mean, still, you got to give credit where credit's due. Colorado just played their game. They came at you hard and fast. And really, it was a one-sided show. I mean, I don't really know what to say that, isn't obvious, that just they were outmatched, outplayed, and just out everything.
Yeah, maybe the more interesting conversation is actually, okay, so the Preds, they held on to Filip Forsberg to be able to make the playoffs. They made a decent push at the end. They make the playoffs. UC Saros, let's just say it this way. They pushed him and used him as they should, because he is a top goaltender in the NHL this season. And 67 games of regular season play is just insane. It's too much. And it showed. They paid the price for playing him too much in the regular season. And now he's he's hurt, doesn't play the first round at all, and really your entire playoff run was screwed from the start. Not even because you pulled the Avalanche. I mean, really they're 1 goal away from winning game 2. They could have, you get a nice bounce in OT and suddenly it's 1-1 and the series feels completely different. Especially heading back to Nashville. You might have had a shot if you had UC Saros. But without UC Saros, you just knew. You knew this series was over before it even started. They weren't going to be able to hold back all the waves that Colorado can splash on you without having somebody who can stand in their head for 60 minutes. You knew they were going to lose. So, yeah, they sacrificed Juicy Saros to make the playoffs, and that's that. And now the question becomes, did you also sacrifice the resources and the assets you could have gotten had you traded Filip Forsberg at the deadline? And yeah, you might have missed the playoffs, but what does the future hold now for the Nashville Predators?
Yeah, I mean, I will say Forsberg has come out since that playoff series has ended that he wants to stay in Nashville. That's his priority, right? But
I agree, and I think he's made that clear all along. He wants to stay in Nashville. The ... but is, I mean, yeah, I'm willing to stay in Nashville if they give me this much money, right? Like, if they're going to give me the same amount that I could get elsewhere, or pretty damn close. Yeah,
and luckily for him, right, there's no state tax in Tennessee, so that kind of helps a lot with your negotiation tactics. But at the same time, Nashville's got $25 million in cap space next season. They don't have any other big-name players to re-sign. Matthias Ekholm's locked up. He's got his extension. So really, you can spend the money on him, but it's really, should we, right? Or do you try to convince Forsberg to say, hey, you know what? We need to go spend some money on some other UFAs so we can bring in other pieces to really solidify our middle six, which is where we've struggled the biggest, right? When we have to match up against these top tier teams. And so, they're going to, obviously Filip Forsberg's going to look at Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson and say, hey, you know what? I want at least $8 million. He could probably go in free agency and get $9.5 million somewhere, because there's going to be teams out there that would want that kind of goal scoring, that type of power forward he is and what he brings to the table, right? Up until this year, he hasn't played with any elite centers. So if you get a team that maybe has a really good center and you say, hey, we can throw you with this guy who's proven to really, produce, that might tip the scales a little bit.
Yeah, he's almost on pace for 50 goals this year too. So, not only is he putting up points, he's scoring goals, and those are valuable. I'll be honest. If there's a team that I could see saying, you know what, we're going to go out and we're going to get this guy, we're going to pay for him, I could see the Philadelphia Flyers going out and trying to get Filip Forsberg.
Ooh, I
could see them. Hey, they could. James Van Riemsdyk, $7 million, but 1 year left on his deal. No trade clauses or anything like that. That's a pretty easy contract to move at the draft. I would think that somebody would be willing to take it on, especially hey, you send a 3rd round pick along with it, and a team gets a 3rd round pick and James Van Riemsdyk. I'm trying to talk too fast. Still scored 24 goals this year, and was he's been very healthy. So I think you find a team who'd be, they want that net front presence. Still got great hands. 1 more year at $7 million. There's your money freed up to be able to go out and perhaps bring in a Filip Forsberg for the Philadelphia Flyers. If I'm a betting man, I think it's going to be hard for Nashville to keep Filip Forsberg, because I think he's going to think he can get a lot of money on the market.
Yeah, and one dark horse, I'm going to throw this team out there because I just would love to see them throw the money out there, and getting to play with a guy like Matty Beniers. I think Seattle could be a dark horse team that might throw some money at Forsberg and say, hey, you know what, we want you to come in here. We want you to be the next maybe potential captain of this team, and you get to play alongside with this young, talented center at Matty Beniers, and you guys can just light it up, because I think Matty Beniers is going to be a star in this league. Maybe not, a top 10, top 5 player, but I think he's definitely going to be, when you talk about centers, maybe he might be a top 10 at some point in the next couple of years. So,
all right.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, either way, I'm kind of leaning with you too. I don't think Forsberg stays with Nashville. I think obviously this team has got some issues. Obviously, I think, finding a backup goaltender is going to be a priority. Going out and getting a guy like maybe Braden Holtby, overpaying a little bit. Maybe they convince Marc-Andre Fleury to come down there. I don't know.
The other side of it is, do I trust in the Matt Duchene 86-point season, 43 goals, when he scored 30 goals one other time in his career? Do I trust that this is the Duchene that we're going to get next year? Because I certainly don't. I think that it's probably somewhere more in the middle. I think he's probably more like, a 70 point guy with 30 goals, might be a 30-25. I just don't know if I trust the season that he had. And if I'm Filip Forsberg, I'm going, he's 31, or Duchene's 31, Johansson's about to turn 30, Granlund's 30. I know you've got Tanner Jeannot and like Luke Kunin, those guys coming, but that's not enough to really make me want to stay. And like Roman Josi, he's 31, going on 32. Ekholm, same thing. I don't know that if he gets the money, he'll stay. I think he obviously likes it, but I just don't know how much I trust this season of the Predators. Like next year, we're going to go back to a team that looks more like Vancouver did this year, or yeah, that or like a Winnipeg, that team that they're kind of there, but they're not really. That's how I see the Predators going into next year. Like, I don't know how that team's gonna continue the pace that they were firing at when you've got some teams below them that are going to be trying to improve as well. So that's where I'd stand on the Predators. Colorado moving on to the next round. It looks like we don't know who they're going to take. They'll either take on Minnesota or St. Louis. If you're Colorado, who do you want to pull in that next round?
I think right now, looking at the way the series has gone, you'd rather pull Minnesota at this point, I think, just because, yes, Kirill the Thrill has been just lights out, just obviously setting a record for most goals in a series for the Minnesota Wild in franchise history. But outside of that, really, the rest of the offense has been kind of low key, right? A little disappointing for me. So, I think, again, you look at St. Louis, they've been there, they've got the experience, the pedigree, they've got really difficult centers down the middle. And not only that, too, but they've got guys that can play that two-way game and guys that can play that high-end skill game with guys like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. So they're going to come at you with every which way. Now, on the flip side of that, right, if you play St. Louis, their goaltending's not as good, right, as maybe I would be worried for, Minnesota, their goaltending. But, hey, pick your poison. I think I'd rather play a team that's, got some mediocre goaltending and lackluster forwards versus
but they're a team that have won the cup, so they know how to win. That would be the one thing that they have on you, right? Like, hey, some of these guys have won the cup, and we are still chasing it. Now, at the same time, I think Colorado probably looks at whoever they pull in the next series, and they go, we could beat them. That's fine. We'll beat them. And Colorado has probably out of any team in the NHL, they have the easiest path to the Stanley Cup. The easiest path.
That's fair to say, right?
Because Carolina, let's say Carolina wins tonight, or maybe Boston wins the series. But either way, next round you got to take on either the Penguins, is sure what it looks like, or the New York Rangers. Not an easy series there either. For the Leafs or the Lightning, I guess it could be does anyone really think Washington's going to beat Florida? Best 2 out of 3 here? I just don't. So, you're pulling Florida in the next round. It doesn't matter. Florida, either way, you're getting a hard team to play in the next round. And, it just seems like that's the one team that kind of has this, they look like they could beat anybody in the Western Conference, at least. It'll be nice the West is getting all screwed up because of Dallas and LA. What the heck? Yeah. My bracket's going to hell again. Always happens every year. My bracket just busted.
That's why I just pick one team. I literally, I kid you not, I pick one team, and I'm just like, you know what? They probably won't, but I'm going to have them go to the Stanley Cup Finals just because. Why not?
Yep, I have the same team go to the Stanley Cup Finals every year. And
it's worked out real well.
And it's, the last time it worked out, I was minus 19 years old. That's before I was born, if you didn't pick up on that. All right. Well, that is, the one series that's done. I think don't even want to. It's like the hardest one to want to break down, because it's just like, the Predators and the the Avalanche. The Avalanche beat them because they had a whole team and Nashville didn't. Okay. That's kind of it. And right. and now it'll be, I think, a little more interesting to break down some of these other series once the dust really settles from them, because there are some good teams that have spent resources to win this round, and somebody's going to lose, and there are some potential heads rolling if there is a loss. So we'll see what happens here in the coming days. Justin, any final thoughts before we sign off this evening?
Yeah. Well, just one little last comment on the Nashville Colorado series.
Oh, yeah.
Tanner Jeannot, right? 0 penalty minutes, finished 3rd in the league this year in penalty minutes. I expected just a chippier game out of him, maybe to slow Colorado down. I don't know if he just couldn't keep up or what, but too bad.
Yeah, that's the first playoff experience, and you got a little nervous maybe.
You got schooled.
Well, Tanner Jeannot, start taking penalties. Come on, bro. But, I mean, yeah, I agree. You're like hoping, your team's down in the series. Get in a fight. Do something,
right.
Just shake things up. Wake your team up. Do something to piss the other guys off and hope they make a mistake. Anything. I don't disagree. Playoffs come and you got to go a little old school sometimes. So come on, Tanner. What the heck? He'll have another chance, but not next year if he's on the Predators, because they're going to miss the playoffs next year. Put it down.
All right.
Right now, making my playoff predictions for 2023. Yeah, I might be rescinding that. I don't know. But Justin, I hope you have a great rest of your evening. To our listeners, thanks for listening today. You can find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. And until the next time, enjoy that playoff hockey.